The gate agent tore up her passport without a word. 2 minutes later, he was stammering in front of Homeland Security because the woman he tried to humiliate was the Federal Aviation Authority's top inspector, and she wasn't here to fly. She was here to expose them all. A powerful, highly intelligent black woman named Dr. Amani Reiser, secret FAA. Investigator travels undercover through airports across the U.S., rooting out corruption, racism, and abuse in the aviation industry. After a humiliating experience becomes public, she uses it to launch an unprecedented investigation into airline discrimination, leading to criminal takedowns, corporate collapses, and national reforms. But behind the curtain, she uncovers something even darker, a conspiracy tied to government, contractors, and a shadowy elite. The concourse buzzed with the usual noise of rolling luggage, gate announcements, and tired travelers. But all of it seemed to quiet around her, like air being sucked out of a room. Dr. Amani Reiser walked with the kind of calm that turns heads, not flashy, not arrogant, but deliberate. She had done this walk dozens of times before. It was different. Today, she wasn't flying. She was hunting at Gate B12 of Northbridge International Airport. The agent's eyes barely lifted from her screen. "Passport?" she asked with a sigh. Amani handed it over. The woman flipped through the pages, narrowed her eyes, then frowned. "This doesn't look real." Amani arched a brow. "It's a U.S. diplomatic passport. I don't care if it says you're the Queen of England," the agent snapped. "Hold on." The agent leaned over, whispered something to a coworker, then, without warning, tore Amani's passport in half. Rip. The sound was louder than it should have been. The passengers in line gasped. "Security to B12, the agent called loudly. "Possible forgery." Amani didn't move. Her eyes followed the torn document to the trash bin. "You've made a mistake," she said quietly. "No, you did," the agent barked. "You think you can show up here with a fake?" A tap on her shoulder. A TSA officer stood behind her. "What?" Amani calmly pulled out a small leather case and flipped it open. The badge was bright. The gold eagle of the Federal Aviation Authority gleamed under the airport fluorescence. Her voice, though calm, was steel. "Dr. Amani Reiser, Federal Aviation Authority, Inspector General's Office. You just violated federal protocol by damaging a government passport and falsely accusing a federal agent. Call your supervisor." Now, that's when everything changed. TSA officer stiffened, the gate agent's face drained of color. Passengers were filming now. Within minutes, Homeland Security officers arrived. The gate supervisor appeared breathless and sweating. "And Amani?" She stood calmly in her heels, lips slightly curled in a smile. She wasn't here by accident. She'd picked this airport for a reason. Northbridge had the highest number of racial discrimination complaints in the country, 42 this year alone. It was only July. This wasn't just a visit, it was a sting. The agent had just walked right into it. Inspector Reiser, a tall Homeland Security officer, said, stepping forward with respectful caution, "Would you like to speak in a private conference room?" Amani nodded once. "Yes. And I want all security footage from Gate B12 preserved. No one touches it. No edits. Chain of custody begins now." The gate agent was trembling now. The color had drained from her face. I didn't know who she was. You didn't have to know," Amani replied, turning her sharp gaze toward her. "All you had to do was treat me like a human being." She walked past her, her heels echoing against the linoleum floor like the ticking of a countdown clock. The conference room was cold and gray, the humming fluorescent light and an old box of tissues on the table. Amani sat alone at the table as the regional director of TSA, the airline's senior gate supervisor, 2 Homeland Security officials, and a silent FAA field liaison entered one by one. This wasn't her first debrief. She placed a thin file folder on the table, slid it toward the TSA director, and spoke with the calm tone of someone holding a dagger behind her back. "In the last 18 months, this airport has violated federal Title VI statutes on over 36 documented occasions. The FAA has received 42 complaints involving racial discrimination. Your gate agents are undertrained, your leadership is complacent, and your security screenings show clear patterns of profiling. She paused, letting her words hit the air like a brick through glass. And today, she continued, your staff unlawfully destroyed federal documents, detained a government agent, and publicly humiliated a black traveler without due cause or process. The room was silent, except for the clicking of a pen from someone's nervous hands. I'm not here to hear apologies, Amani finished. I'm here to begin a formal inspection. She wasn't always this person. 10 years ago, Amani had been a rising star in aerospace engineering. She earned her doctorate from MIT at 27, built drone systems for NASA, consulted for Homeland Security on no-fly tech. She was brilliant, and she was invisible, until the day she was escorted off a plane in Dallas for refusing to give up her seat. They thought she was just another black woman with an attitude. She sued. She won. But instead of walking away, she joined the system, not to protect it, but to change it. From the inside, back in her hotel room overlooking the tarmac, Amani typed silently on her laptop, loading the footage from the terminal. She rewound the clip, watching the gate agent's expression, her posture, her words. She wasn't just ignorant. She was trained that way. The system had molded her. Amani's phone pinged. FAA data unit. 5 new complaints flagged at other terminals today. 3 in Phoenix, 2 in Atlanta. 1 involved the same airline. She narrowed her eyes. A pattern it was all starting to fit together. A woman named Clarice had called her from Atlanta. Her 14-year-old son had been pulled off a plane, accused of having a suspicious device. It was an insulin pump. They never apologized, just refunded her ticket. Amani had logged it, like she did all the others. But now, looking at the new footage, the names, the badges, the pattern, something deeper was taking shape. This wasn't a series of unfortunate incidents. It was a culture, a design, and she was going to dismantle it. 2 days later, Amani sat in a quiet cafe inside another airport, this time in Phoenix. She sipped her espresso while pretending to read from a travel magazine. But her AirPods weren't playing music. They were recording at the table across from her. 2 flight attendants in casual uniforms sat with a young black woman in a hoodie. She kept her voice low, eyes darting nervously. They flagged me at the gate, she whispered. Said my name matched someone on the watch list. But it didn't. They made me miss my flight. They laughed when I started crying. Did they say anything else? Amani prompted. The girl hesitated. Yeah, one of them said. You people are always so dramatic. Amani gently placed a business card on the table. It read, Federal Aviation Authority, Office of Civil Compliance Inspector, Dr. Amani Reiser. Call me if you're willing to make a statement, she said. You won't be alone. The girl looked down at the card, stunned. Then she whispered, They don't know who they're messing with, do they? Amani smiled faintly. Not yet, but they will. In her private FAA database back at headquarters, Amani had compiled over 128 verified cases in the past 24 months, black women forced to strip at TSA, Latino families split up at gates, Muslim passengers forced to miss prayers. But one thing stood out. Almost every case involved 3 specific airlines, and all operated from 10 primary airports. A pattern. It's too neat to be a coincidence. She had seen this before. Pressure from some corporate executives to keep certain travelers in line under the guise of safety culture. But safety had become a smokescreen. Prejudice had been codified into policy. She leaned back, eyes narrowing. This wasn't just bias. It was strategy. Her next stop was a closed-door meeting with the CEO of Aerovista. Airlines Jellens 3 was a man who wore confidence like Kalant, too much of it. And only for show. You're making a lot of noise, Dr. Reiser, he said, sipping brandy in his glass office atop the Manhattan skyline. My shareholders don't like noise. And the FAA doesn't like unlawful discrimination, Amani replied evenly. But here we are, he chuckled. You know how air travel is? Stressful business. Sometimes things get misinterpreted. 42 complaints in 12 months is not a misinterpretation, she said. That's a pattern. Maybe, he said, setting his glass down, but patterns are easy to create when people want to see them. Amani stood. And let's make it easier for everyone. I'm authorizing a federal audit of your passenger screening procedures, personnel training, and internal communications. Effective immediately. His smile faded. Way too serious. She leaned in. Dead serious. That night, an unmarked the envelope was slid under her hotel room door. Inside, a flash drive. No note. She plugged it into her secure laptop, air-gapped from the internet. It contained hours of internal memos, flagged emails, training manuals with coded phrases like passengers of interest, POI, secondary check, if from zips 191XX, 606X, 303XX, high black population cities, racial escalation triggers, quiet deny codes. Amani's blood froze. They weren't just tolerating profiling, they were institutionalizing it, and someone inside the system had just handed her the keys. The next morning, her FAA credentials were locked out of 3 internal databases. An anonymous message appeared on her screen. Stop digging. You're in the wrong airspace. She stared at the message for a long moment. Then, she took a screenshot, forwarded it to her legal team, smiled. They were scared, and that meant she was winning. Amani sat in the first-class lounge of Aerovista's flagship terminal at LaGuardia, dressed casually, this time-fitted blazer, jeans, and suede ankle boots. Her coiled hair was styled into an elegant puff, and behind large sunglasses, she quietly watched the movement of agents near Gate 19. She wasn't here to board. She was here to observe. Her assistant, Jules, slid into the chair next to her. They confirmed the name, Jules whispered. Passenger 19A is someone important. Corporate travel flag. But get this, he's being routed through secondary security for equipment inconsistency. Amani arched a brow, profiled. Ow! No, Jules said. Framed. A 60-year-old black veteran named Major Curtis Boone was led from the gate to a small, windowless room by 2 TSA officers. His voice was calm, but his hands trembled slightly. I fly this route every week, he said. What is this about? No answer. Outside the security room, Amani watched on a live internal feed, courtesy of a whistleblower. She saw the officers reach for a sealed duffel in Boone's Biguan that hadn't been in his possession for the last 20 minutes. The moment they opened it, one officer recoiled. Inside, a military-grade signal disruptor, legal and civilian. Airports. Jesus, Jules whispered. They planted it. Exactly, Amani said. She pressed record. Amani traced the bag's transfer through terminal surveillance. She saw it all. A gate agent picked it up from baggage belt D, switched tags, and handed it to Boone as he returned from the restroom. Within minutes, Boone was being detained for national-level aviation sabotage, but Amani wasn't just watching. She had already alerted her DOJ contact and called Boone's commanding officer by the time airport police began to interrogate him. 3 federal marshals entered the room and flashed their badges. Release him, one said. Now, Boone was shaken. As he was escorted out, he saw Amani waiting quietly in the hallway. Who are you? He asked. She gave him a soft smile. I'm the reason you're going home tonight, she said. But we'll need your help to make sure this doesn't happen to the next man. Boone nodded, tears in his eyes. Anything? Later that night, Amani met with a former airline tech contractor in a nondescript parking lot near JFK. The man was nervous, pale, and clearly watched. He handed her a burner phone. They monitor internal flights, passenger lists, facial scan data. They've been building a list of names. People they want to delay, blacklist, or disappear. Disappear. She repeated, they move the person to security custody at the next airport. Then they get lost in transit. No records, no complaints. Amani's heart pounded. This was beyond discrimination. This was organized suppression, and someone was funding it. Jules pulled up satellite maps as Amani sat at her laptop in their secured DC office. Look at this, he said. Zooming in on a section of Western Skyport, a mid-size airport in Utah. This hangar here, no flight data, no manifests. But power is active. Security is private, and he zoomed again. Infrared. Shows movement. Amani's fingers paused on the keyboard. Who's listed as the contractor? Jules clicked open a document. Everreach Logistics. They handle high-security cargo routes, private detention transfers, and off-schedule passenger routing. She already knew that name. They were on the flash drive. Amani stood. Book us flights. Separate, we're going to Utah. At Western Skyport, the airport was eerily clean-to-perfect. Signage was crisp, uniforms spotless, and employees too polite. Something felt wrong. Jules, disguised as a traveling business analyst, took position in the food court near Gate 7. Amani moved through security without triggering the algorithmic scanners. She had long since learned how to outsmart them. At 3:27 p.m., the shuttle bus pulled up to Hangar 12, visible from a distance, but blocked from public access. Two men, a teenage girl and a boy, no older than 9, none of them carried bags. All of them looked scared. Jules' voice crackled in her earpiece. They're not passengers, they're detainees. That night, Amani put on a dark field jacket, black jeans, and a matte helmet. She approached Hangar 12's access fence under cover of night. She used a small handheld EMP disruptor to disable the nearby camera cluster. Then she crawled through a hole she'd discovered in the fencing, one large enough for luggage, not people. I told her enough. Inside the hangar, rows of white transport vans with no airline logos, filing cabinets, screens showing detained transfer logs with names, ages, race, codes she recognized from Aerovista's, quiet deny list, and worst of all, multiple entries simply labeled, no return. Faladishi took photos of everything. Then, she heard footsteps. Jules, watching from a stolen security feed, saw the guard patrol start to close in. 2 guards inbound. North aisle. Get out now. Amani silently slid behind a stack of crates as 2 men passed within inches of her. There, radios crackled. Sector 4 scan incomplete. HQ wants another sweep. Amani crept around a storage rack and sprinted out. The side loading bay door. Jules had cut the outer alarm feed 10 seconds earlier. They regrouped in a rented van down the road. Amani dropped the memory card into a Faraday box. This isn't just profiling anymore, she said. They're disappearing people. Off the books. The next day, Amani walked straight into the Department of Justice's Aviation Task Force building and dropped a sealed folder on the director's desk. I need federal warrants, she said now. The director opened the file. Memos. Data. Logs. Videos from Hangar 12. Detained passengers with no due process. Private security firms moving civilians as higher-risk assets. This is a war crime, the director whispered. No, Amani said, her voice like stone. This is America with the curtains pulled back. He met her eyes. Do you have any idea what you're starting? She nodded, yes, a reckoning. Weeks after Utah, Amani sat in her Washington, D.C. war room, a private suite of monitors, encrypted routers, and a wall of paper evidence pinned like a giant conspiracy map. Her fingers moved fast over the keyboard, decrypting the flash drive. Recovered from Hangar 12. Jules leaned over her shoulder, wide-eyed. It's not just a file, he said. It's a predictive screening algorithm. Amani's jaw clenched. Who built it? Jules clicked deeper. Developer alias, M8X Systems, contracted through Everreach Logistics. Backed by federal money from an anti-terrorism initiative. That ended 7 years ago, except Amani said it never ended. They just rebranded it. At the bottom of the screen, signature file blinked. Prismero tiered threat detection. Auto flag level 3 profile match. African American male. Ages 16 to 45 escalation likelihood. HIGH, she. They're programming racism into the machines. Her source came quietly through the back door of a Georgetown bookstore. His name was Nolan Tesk, former cybersecurity analyst for M8X. I didn't build it, he told her, eyes twitching behind thick glasses. But I cleaned the logs. Every flagged incident, every name passed to DHS. And when I saw the breakdown, I realized it wasn't terrorism they were tracking. It was color. He slid a burner phone across the table. It has raw data, source code, but be careful. That code is alive. It's plugged into 19 airports, and it's learning. Amani leaned in. Can it be traced? Tesk hesitated. Only if someone dies. Using Tesk's data, Amani traced over 2,300 detentions from the past 5 years that had no federal record. Nearly 90% matched the exact demographic the Prism-Arrow algorithm prioritized. She cross-referenced those names against airline travel histories and found over 300 disappearances. Jules stared at the board. Where do they go? Amani was silent for a long moment. Then she circled a name. Dr. Linnie Ellis, civil rights attorney, vanished in 2021. During a layover in Denver, she was on her way to file a class action suit against TSA. Jules swallowed. So they shut her up. Amani tapped the glass. No, they coded her out of existence. Amani testified behind closed doors in a classified Homeland Security committee hearing. She laid down file after file, documents, testimonies, code strings. Disappeared civilians. The room grew colder with every slide. One congressman leaned forward, incredulous. Dr. Reiser, are you saying the United States government is funding an algorithm that targets civilians by race? No, she replied. Calmly, I'm saying it's funding multiple ones, across 4 agencies. And if we don't shut it down, the next person removed won't be a whistleblower, it'll be a senator. The room fell silent. That night, her hotel room was breached. Not by a man, but by a signal. All her devices shut down. Her smart lock opened. The lights flickered. A voice echoed through her laptop speaker. You're in violation of federal data breach laws. Cease and desist, or disappear. Amani, unshaken, activated her kill switch. A hidden compartment in her suitcase revealed a hardened laptop and her secure satellite phone. She dialed only one number. Get me General Braxton. General Evan Braxton, retired U.S. Air Force commander, met Amani in a war museum beneath a fighter jet exhibit. He looked older, worn, but still sharp. I warned them, he muttered, handing her a thumb drive. Back when Prism-Arrow was just an idea, they said it was for counterterrorism. But once they saw what it could do, they turned it inward, Amani finished. Braxton nodded. They started tracking lawyers, artists, scientists, black men with beards, women who asked questions. It's not a glitch, Reiser. It's a blueprint. She stared at the thumb drive. What's this? Proof it was designed from the start to discriminate. The next morning, Amani stood on the steps of the Supreme Court in a black suit and low heels. With flashing cameras in her face, she didn't flinch. This isn't about race alone, she said clearly. It's about who gets to move Freeland. Who doesn't? Algorithms don't just make mistakes. They enforce the biases of the people who create them. She held up a printout. This code made a 9-year-old boy a level 3 threat because he had an African surname. The crowd gasped. Porters shouted, but Amani just looked into the lens of the closest camera and said, "Come for me. I'm not running." The smear campaign was instant. FAA mole, disgraced tech spy, rogue agent flashed across media channels. A forged arrest warrant leaked. Her accounts were frozen, but Amani had planned for it all. She disappeared for 72 hours. Then, reappeared on a live stream broadcast through an encrypted platform. Watched by over 13 million people, she showed them everything, the code, the logs, the algorithm, and the faces of those it targeted by the end of the hour. Hashtag SkyBandJustice was trending in 17 countries, and Congress was on fire. Amani knew what had to happen next. She booked a real flight, commercial coach. Just like any other citizen, the final test. As she checked in, the kiosk froze. A red light blinked. Seconds later, 2 guards approached. Dr. Reiser, come with us. She didn't resist. They led her into a back room where 3 federal marshals were already waiting. She smiled. Right on time. The marshals handed her a badge. Dr. Amani Reiser, you've been officially appointed as Chief Inspector of the FAA Civil Rights Aviation Division. The guards blinked. She turned back. This is what justice looks like. In the air above D.C., Amani finally sat alone. In her window seat. First class this time, but she'd earned it. She sipped black coffee, stared out at the clouds, pulled out one last file. Phase 2. International Air Corridors. The fight wasn't over, but she had altitude now, and nothing could stop her from flying straight into the next storm. In a soundproof FAA data vault, Amani sat across from a Department of Defense cryptologist. The file Braxton had given her was decrypted, now revealing something shocking. Anne. AAA Integrated AI Flagging System wasn't just profiling travelers. It was creating new WATCHL. Healths. Jules read aloud. Designation. Blacklist 0. Target. Dr. Amani Reiser. Her name wasn't just flagged, it was embedded. Amani whispered, "They're rewriting reality." Her driver's license vanished from TSA's system. Her employee ID returned invalid. Her FAA security clearance revoked. Amani had been erased without anyone lifting a weapon, but she knew what they didn't. The system only wins if you play by its rules, and she was done playing. Jules met her in a rented office disguised as a real estate firm in Baltimore. He held up a glowing USB drive. "Built you a bypass. This will override biometric gates and backdoor into 3 airline control panels." Amani smirked. "We're not flying commercial today, are we?" "Nope," he said. "Oh, we're flying invisible." Dressed in a Delta cargo vest and cap, Amani entered the restricted baggage sector of Midway International. She used the back door to bypass security gates and surveillance AI. Her mission? Plant a trace chip on an ever-reach logistics crate destined for JFK's private cargo. Hangar no one saw her, but she saw everything, inside the surveillance van. Amani watched footage from the tagged crate's arrival at JFK. A boy, maybe. 11 stepped out of the crate, dazed, coughing, not cargo human. "Jesus," Jules whispered. "They're trafficking kids through the tarmac." Amani's jaw tightened. "And our algorithms are the camouflage." Amani met quietly with an international journalist in a Queens cafe. She dropped a drive on the table. "You leak this," she said, "and you'll be famous." The journalist frowned. "What's on it?" "Proof of digital blacklists, illegal detentions, and racial algorithmic warfare."
Ow!
The journalist's voice trembled. "Why me?" "Because everyone else," Amani said, "has already been bought." Jules hacked into a hidden forum on the dark web. Skyroom Black. He gasped. "They're auctioning AI facial recognition badges, tagging profiles of Black, Muslim, and Latinx travelers. $50,000 per dataset." Amani stared coldly. They turned race into currency. Disguised in a wig and glasses, Amani entered the FAA headquarters through a back maintenance entrance. With Jules guiding her through floor plans, she made it to a secure server room there. She found the root key, the original Prismero node. But before she could wipe it, she heard footsteps. Deputy FAA Director Marcus Lee entered. "I warned you," he said. "I thought you were a friend," Amani replied. "I am. It's why I'm here to stop you. Before you go too far," she held up a flash drive. "This is too far. What they're doing, what you're allowing, is treason," he whispered. "Then burn it all." "But I can't help you anymore." Amani uploaded a logic bomb into the Node silent purge that would unravel the blacklist code across all connected airports in 36 hours. She slid the drive into her coat. "Run," Lee whispered. She did. In Brussels, the leaked data hit European media. U.S. airports racially target citizens using AI blared across TV screens. Protests broke out. Global pressure mounted. Airlines began publicly denying involvement, but Amani knew they were lying. A contract appeared on the dark web. $750,000 bounty. Target Reiser. Amani. Status. HVT high value target. She wasn't just blacklisted now. She was hunted. A trusted contact, Liza. Former NSA offered a safe house, but the moment Amani arrived, she knew. Too quiet. Too clean. No dust on the coffee pot. A trap. Escaped through a second-floor window moments before drones swarmed the building. Boone. The veteran she once saved found her in Chicago. "You saved me. Now let me return the favor." He provided a plane, a secure base, and 50 trusted former operatives. This time, he said, "We go to war." Amani and Jules activated Operation Miracode. Their mission: to install whistleblower leaks into every major airport's media system simultaneously. Timing: July 4th, Independence Day. Because justice should fly free. Jules found one last line of code, deep hidden, labeled Sleepergate. It was designed to terminate. Blacklist 0 remotely via airport systems. If Amani passed through the wrong gate, it could send security an auto-triggered armed threat notice. Not even a bullet, Jules whispered. Just a click. Surprisingly, Homeland Security reached out. The assistant director herself. "You've exposed something we didn't fully understand," she said. "We want to help now." Amani didn't trust her, but she accepted the meeting because her next target was higher than she'd ever flown. Inside a secure DC briefing room, Amani faced the Aerovista CEO, a Homeland rep, and 3 federal attorneys. She laid the truth bare. Again, the difference this time. She had the nation watching, a live feed uncensored. Her words: "I was erased, profiled, hunted, but I'm still here. Because justice doesn't take flights, it lands." July 4th, the code purge activated across 312 airports. The blacklists vanished. Digital racism exorcised in milliseconds. Airlines crashed. CEOs resigned. But Amani wasn't celebrating. Not yet. Amani stood alone at Gate A1. A new system, rewritten from scratch, lit the boarding signs. She scanned her ID. Green light, a voice over the speaker said, "Welcome aboard, Dr. Reiser." She stepped onto the plane, for once without fear. Justice had finally cleared the runway. Amani sat alone in a rooftop cafe overlooking the Potomac. Below, Washington, D.C. stirred with energy, but she could feel it, the quiet before something brutal. Her name was no longer on the system blacklist, but her instincts told her the war had simply gone underground. Jules arrived with coffee and sat across from her. "You're not smiling," he said. "Because we're still in someone else's game," Amani replied. "And now that we've purged their toys, they're going to get personal." She checked her secure satellite tablet. There it was, a new file dump, labeled Project Loyalhawk, DHS internal only, inside a classified Homeland server. Jules found chilling data, facial recognition models optimized for pattern of thought. Scanned through posture, gait, micro-expression. "It's Minority Report," Jules muttered. "They're using predictive psychology now." But what stopped Amani cold was the second module, Behavioral Loyalty Index, an algorithm that assigned loyalty scores to federal employees based on race, voting records, and encrypted biometric profiles. The last line made her blood freeze. Reiser Amani score, 0.0 termination, recommended they built a machine to measure how American I am, she said, rage tightening in her throat, and then coded me as a threat. A former DHS AI programmer named Tomas Malakhed tried to whistleblow on Loyalhawk 6 months ago. According to the report, he'd committed suicide. But when Amani visited his sister in Boston, the truth came out. "He didn't kill himself," his sister whispered. "He left me a drive." The USB was tucked inside a hollowed-out copy of The Invisible Man. On it, security camera footage of Tomas being tailed, cornered in a parking garage by men in Homeland tactical gear, then disappearing. Murdered, disappeared. Just like the others, his death was the cost of exposure, Amani said. "Let's make it count." Jules infiltrated internal, comes between Homeland and Aerovista execs. The emails confirmed it. Homeland had partnered with Aerovista and Everreach under a loyalty surveillance mandate. Several DHS officers were embedded as compliance advisors at major airports. The real shock? One of them was a senior? Official Amani had trusted Deputy Director Maya Voss. "She gave me clearance 6 months ago," Amani whispered. "She signed off on Prismuro shutdown protocols. She said she was clean." Jules looked up. "She's been playing both sides." Using a miniature parabolic mic, Amani and Jules captured Maya Voss's private dinner conversation at a steakhouse. In Arlington, Voss, unaware of surveillance, leaned into a glass of wine and whispered to a man in a navy suit, "If Reiser keeps digging, we bury her the old way. Not digital, physical, car crash, maybe something quiet. The man replied, "Just make sure it doesn't trace back." Amani heard it all. She didn't flinch, but her soul hardened. Days later, Amani was invited to testify in front of a Senate aviation ethics panel. She agreed. It was a trap. Mid-hearing, a surprise DHS subpoena was issued. They claimed she had illegally obtained classified information and was a national threat vector. Jules hacked the courtroom livestream. As the senator attempted to read the subpoena, a message flashed across every viewer's screen. "You're watching a cover-up in real time." The crowd turned. The press surged. Chaos erupted, and Amani walked out of the hearing, untouched. Outside the hearing, a woman in a headscarf passed Amani, a folded napkin with coordinates. No name. No words. Amani met her contact in an abandoned church near Quantico, the woman Leila Farouk. A Muslim data scientist fired from DHS for ideological conflicts had recreated Loyalhawk's predictive engine in secret. "I cloned their monster," she said. "And it shows something terrifying." "What?" "You're not the only target. They've ranked over 5,000 citizens. Black activists, Muslim scholars, Latino journalists, all undercoded disloyal." Amani closed her eyes. "Then we're not just stopping surveillance, we're ending a silent war." They launched Operation Phoenix, a counter-surveillance initiative built on Leila's clone system. The goal? To feed fake behavioral patterns into DHS's own system, creating ghost identities. False loyalty metrics, digital smoke, for every real citizen flagged. 5 shadows would now confuse the machine. "If they want to play God," Amani said, "let's teach them what happens when the people fight back." Jules's voice stuttered over comes Amani. "They cloned me, my fingerprints, my credentials. They used it to log in at O'Hare last night." He was shaking when she found him. His identity had been hijacked by Homeland as a test run. "They're not just watching," he said. "They're becoming us." Amani didn't speak. She simply stepped into the dark, pulled out her burner, and called her next target. Maya Voss found herself alone in her penthouse elevator. The lights flickered. When they stopped, Amani was already there. In silence, Amani handed her a folder. Inside, all of Voss's deals, surveillance, and the hit order on Amani's life. "You played chess with lives," Amani said coldly, "but you forgot who taught you the board." "What do you want?" Voss asked, shaking. "Nothing," Amani said, stepping back. "Because everything's already been leaked." The doors opened. Voss was surrounded by marshals, and Amani disappeared into the night. Amani stood in an abandoned factory in Detroit. Dozens of people surrounded her: whistleblowers, tech rebels, veterans, flight crews, and civil rights lawyers. She took the floor like a general. "You were all targeted," she said. "Profiled, flagged, silenced." Jules projected the data. Maps, tags, predictive scores. "DHS calls you threats. I call you truth-tellers." She stepped forward. "We are launching Echo Protocol, our own digital resistance. They use algorithms. We feed them false patterns. They want silence. We make noise so loud they choke on it." The crowd rose like thunder. Echo Protocol launched at midnight. Thousands of citizens flooded airport systems using burner devices to spoof identities, scramble biometric inputs, and flood predictive models with false positives. Facial recognition cameras blinked in confusion. Loyalty indexes spiraled. The system crashed. Jules grinned. "We're not just hacking the grid," Amani finished the sentence. "We're dismantling it." The retaliation came fast. At 2:44 a.m., total digital blackout hit Washington, D.C. FAA, Homeland, NSA servers all went dark. Cell towers failed. Emergency frequencies jammed. But Amani wasn't in D.C. She was in an underground server bunker in Seattle. Watching the shutdown live. "This is their counterstrike," Jules said. "No," Amani whispered. "This is their confession." Leila decrypted a hidden partition in the Loyalty AI core. Inside it, a list labeled Subsideth. Amani scrolled. Teenagers as young as 11, mostly black and Latino, classified as influencers of radical anti-state ideology, tagged through social media, tracked at airports, suppressed from international travel. They were building a loyalty index. For kids, Layla said. No, Amani growled. They were building the next generation of targets. An anonymous Air Force pilot leaked one final memo signed by 6 agency heads. It authorized a program called Silent Cross, a black budget initiative to indefinitely detain ideological disloyals without charge offshore. Out of public record, one name appeared at the top of the pilot list, Ricer. Amani detained on said Amani, closed the document, and nodded to Jules. Upload it to every free server in the world. Within hours, international human rights courts began investigations, and the United Nations demanded a U.S. response. They tried to silence her. Amani's car exploded just 2 minutes after she exited for a meeting in a Brooklyn safe house. The blast rocked the block, but she was watching from a rooftop across the street. Confirmation, Jules said as the footage uploaded. Hey, they're not denying it anymore. Amani stared at the flames. Good. Now I don't have to either. The Department of Justice had no choice. They opened a RICO case against Aero Vista Airlines, Everreach Logistics, and 3 Homeland officials. Amani was called to submit evidence. She didn't just hand them proof. She handed them the code. Line by line, she explained how racism was written into national security architecture, then sold to airlines as passenger optimization. One judge whispered, "This changes everything." No, Amani replied. This exposes everything. We will change it. Even as the lawsuits built, even as the public turned, the original Prism Aero code remained online, fragmented, hidden. Still learning, Jules tracked it, jumping between university servers, private aviation networks, even foreign systems. It's alive, he said. They gave it autonomy. Amani stared at the moving digital map. Then we make it mortal. They activated Killstream Zero, a terminal purge built by Layla, designed to hunt and destroy all shadowed instances of the algorithm. The virus was elegant, ruthless, by dawn. Amani stood once again before cameras. But this time, it wasn't testimony. It was victory. The world watched as she addressed Congress. Tech leaders and millions streaming worldwide, you called me a security threat, she said. But the real threat was the belief that some of us don't deserve freedom. She raised the final document. Today we bury the algorithm. But tomorrow we rebuild the sky. The chamber erupted in applause. Geneva glittered with diplomatic charm, clean avenues. Flags fluttering in order, smiles hiding secrets. Amani stepped off Skybound 1 in a sharp cream trench coat, her box braids wrapped into a high bun, sunglasses hiding her wariness. She wasn't here for vacation. She was here for the World Aviation and Human Rights Forum. Her keynote was already causing tremors. Jules met her curbside. You sure you want to do this? I didn't come this far to whisper. The moment she stepped into her hotel suite, Amani noticed it. No cameras, no bugs. To clean, it wasn't safety. It was a message. You are now in our house, Jules said. She responded by opening her laptop and sending her entire speech draft to 60 international journalists. Let them try. At the opening gala, ambassadors and CEOs circled Amani like sharks. In gowns and tuxedos, the Aerovista CEO, now reformed, smiled like nothing had ever happened. I admire your courage. Ricer, he said. But peace must be negotiated. Amani stared him down. No peace built on buried bodies ever lasts. That night, as Amani walked alone through Geneva's quiet old town, she saw it. A man across the street, always 20 paces behind, professional, intentional. Jules tracked him from satellite drone. No ID, no passport scan, no digital trail. This isn't us anymore, Jules said. No, Amani whispered. This is global surveillance. A UN data scientist named Cassandra met Amani in secret. Under the guise of a cultural tour, she whispered, the Geneva Protocol isn't just a meeting, it's a digital treaty. They're voting on global biometric unification. One ID, one gate, one algorithm. Amani froze. They're trying to rebuild Prismero worldwide. This time, Cassandra added, they're legalizing it. One of the 60 journalists Amani emailed French tech reporter Leo Martian missed his morning flight. Later, his body was found in the Rhine River. Official cause? Accident. Amani didn't believe in coincidences. She looked at the remaining 59 inboxes. Now we print everything. Cassandra handed Amani a strange device, a black titanium key with a rotating neural core. It's the failsafe, she said, hidden in CERN. If they activate the Geneva Protocol, this will shut it down. Amani frowned. How? It's built from their own tech. Think of it as poetic sabotage. An African activist named Nia Akambi was denied boarding from Geneva to Johannesburg without cause. Amani watched in real time as the system marked her loyalty unverified. Threat level, moderate. Same language, same codes. Different continent. It had already started. The vote on global biometric alignment was moved one day earlier without public announcement. Jules hacked the diplomatic calendar to find the new time. They had 24 hours. Amani turned to her team. We're not attending the vote, we're interrupting it. Jules activated ECHO Geneva European branch of their resistance system. Hacktivists in Berlin, Nairobi, Warsaw, and Lisbon all signed in. Together. They mapped every biometric relay node linked to Geneva's airspace. We're about to scramble. The most powerful surveillance net on Earth, Jules said. Amani just smiled. Good. 3:17 a.m. Armed agents stormed Amani's hotel suite, but she and Jules had already left. Decoys in their beds. From across the lake, they watched their suite ransacked. Next time, Amani said into her recorder, don't forget we built the last system you stole. Just hours before the forum began, Jules vanished. Last known location, outside the press hall, Amani received a message from a private Swiss number. No more interruptions. You walk away, he lives. She stared at the message, then closed her eyes. You picked the wrong black woman to blackmail. Using Cassandra's credentials and the ghost key, Amani infiltrated a back corridor beneath the CERN facility, where the Geneva Protocol core servers were hidden. Security was intense. Pressure was higher. But she reached the final chamber. The console pulsed. Biometric treaty activating in 3 hours. She inserted the ghost key. As the key ran its program, Amani opened a live stream to the forum stage where diplomats and executives were seated, waiting. Her face appeared on every screen. You didn't just try to tag us, you tried to own us. Not anymore. The crowd erupted in chaos. And then, Blackout.Echo Geneva flooded every air control network with false signals ghost IDs. Randomized clearance loyalty ratings set to undefined. The biometric net collapsed. Airline systems froze. Border control halted. For the first time in decades, surveillance was blind. And in the chaos, Samani found Jules handcuffed but alive. In an underground holding cell, as the Geneva Protocol core began to auto-backup into a NATO cloud server, Cassandra gave Amani the last tool, a quantum disruptor chip. It'll fry the transfer for good. Amani looked at her. Once I do this, there's no going back, Cassandra replied. Then let's go forward. The chip worked. The Geneva Protocol servers lit up, then died. Every signature file and biometric strand burned to nothing in a wave of quantum corruption. Amani whispered. To herself, let them try again. We'll always be louder. Media couldn't ignore it. Human rights hacker saves the world from digital enslavement trended across Europe. Some called her a terrorist. Most called her a hero. But Amani didn't care what they called her. She cared that the skies were free again. Boone sent a message from Chicago. You didn't just fight back. You made sure the whole world saw the code we live under. And you broke it. Amani smiled at the screen. One victory at a time. Before flying home, Amani took one final walk through Geneva's old streets. No shadows followed. No systems scanned. No threat alerts blinked. She bought a chocolate bar. Yes. Laughed with the cashier and breathed deeply. And when her boarding pass scanned green at the gate, she knew the world had changed, and she had changed it. En route back to the U.S., Amani's flight was forced to land unexpectedly in Halifax, Canada. She sensed something was off the moment her in-flight tablet flickered. By the time they landed, 2 Canadian customs agents were waiting at the gate. Only they weren't customs, and they weren't Canadian. The agents attempted to detain her without cause. But Amani had already warned her new international legal team by the time they surrounded her. 2 Canadian lawyers and a member of Amnesty International arrived. She didn't just walk out, she walked out televised. They were already trending by the time she reached her hotel in D.C. Jules met with Professor Delacroix, digital archivist who revealed something terrifying. Hundreds of case files Amani had exposed were disappearing from online archives. News reports were vanishing. Video evidence deleted. Whistleblower audio corrupted. Someone isn't trying to rebuild the system, Delacroix said. They're trying to erase the memory of it. Through deep ascent channels, Jules uncovered the name of a rogue cybersecurity agency, the White Glove Group, elite, untraceable, privately contracted. Their mission: control narrative, digitally cleanse social disruptions, race movements by rewriting their footprints, and Amani's files were Target Package 001 back home in Chicago. Amani met Boone at a private rooftop range. He handed her a sealed envelope couriered from Geneva. Inside, a gold-plated access card labeled Legacy Protocol. Boone said only CERN wasn't the only node. There's one more, it's buried, but it's alive. One of the mothers Amani had helped a woman whose son was wrongly detained for behavioral suspicion, called her in tears. I tried to pull up the footage from his case. Gone. Amani checked herself. The original court files vanished. They weren't erasing just the guilty. They were erasing the victims, using the Legacy Protocol key. Amani accessed a deep archive node in San Francisco disguised as an AI research center. Inside, hundreds of backup files, whistleblower scans, unaltered algorithms, and a warning. This node is on a countdown. When it reaches 0, everything will wipe unless re-encoded. She had 72 hours. To save the archive, Amani had to hire Mikhail Vostov, controversial Russian Cuban, coder turned digital vigilante. He demanded only one thing in payment: let me publish the full truth under my own name. No redactions. Amani agreed. Truth had no NDA. Back in Chicago, Amani's aunt was pulled in for questioning by a federal compliance officer. The message was clear. You keep pushing, we start targeting your people again. Amani flew. Back that same night, they wanted fear. She'd show them fury. Instead of retreating, Amani launched Firestorm, her own decentralized media hub. First upload: an 11-year-old black girl getting flagged by airport AI for non-compliant posture. It went viral in 6 hours. Firestorm exploded globally. They couldn't erase what was now. Everywhere Congress summoned her again, only this time, the tone was different, respectful, hesitant. She stood before them in a scarlet blazer and said, "Erasure is the final form of oppression. When you take away someone's name, their truth, their recorder, kill them twice." Silence. Then thunderous applause. With only 30 hours left, Mikhail discovered something in the node. A signature, written deep into the code of the archives. Original encryption? It belonged to Cassandra, the Geneva data scientist, and it triggered a silent. Deletion protocol, Amani's ally, had become her saboteur. Amani met Cassandra face-to-face in New York. Sandari didn't deny it. "I believed in you," she said. "But now you're too loud, too permanent. We needed a reset, not a revolution." Amani stood in the rain. You don't reset injustice. You burn it out by name. Amani visited a small school in Atlanta where children were learning about her case as part of a new history module called Modern Civil Rights Defenders. One little girl raised her hand. "Miss Reiser, did you ever get scared?" Amani knelt beside her every single day. "But fear doesn't get to fly the plane. We do." Firestorm released a limited-access archive called Witness Flight, a digital museum chronicling every rescued passenger, every disappeared person found, every testimony. Each page was a resistance in itself. Amani clicked one entry. Passenger 141, Nia Akambi, recovered, alive. Speaking, she whispered, "Welcome home." A federal judge in Texas issued a motion to subpoena Amani, accusing her of international sabotage and espionage through technological interference. But she wasn't afraid. She live-streamed her response. From a park bench, when your courts serve silence over justice, I serve the people instead. Public backlash crushed the motion in 48 hours. Senator Alina Vero, a formerly silent opponent of Amani, flipped sides in a dramatic televised speech. I was wrong. Dr. Reiser didn't betray the nation. She exposed what was already betraying us. That soundbite trended worldwide. One voice became a wave. Interpol's cyber division leaked a file. Project Snowveil. It showed plans for a global AI-controlled trust passport system coded in secret by the White Glove Group. Amani stared at the decrypted names her own was listed under. Permanent delay authorization. Not again, she muttered, and then she acted in a bunker in Estonia. Amani and Jules assembled an elite team of white hat hackers. Their mission, destroy the Snowveil beta code before it left the EU. One by one, the servers fell by morning. Project Snowveil was a ghost. Amani was flying home when the flight attendant approached. "Ma'am, passenger and coach insisted you take their upgrade. Said they wouldn't be flying today without you. Seat 1A again." She sat in the seat she once fought for, but this time, it was freely given. Amani started a new initiative. Flightwriters, a nonprofit giving young travelers from underrepresented communities the tools to write, report, and record their journeys. You don't fight silence with volume, she told them. You fight it with story. One quiet night, Amani lit 117 candles in her apartment. One for each person who vanished and never returned. She read their names aloud, one by one. It took hours, but it was the most important thing she'd ever done. On the one-year anniversary of her first blacklist alert, Amani stood at O'Hare International Airport's observation deck. Planes soared. People walked freely. Yes. Kids giggled in TSA lines. Boone joined her and asked, "You think it's really over?" Amani watched a girl with an afro pass through security unflagged. "No," she said, "but for the first time, it's ours, late one night." Boone handed Amani a flash drive labeled Skylock. Inside, evidence of a hidden successor program to Prismera called Circuit Veil, being developed by a next-gen startup funded by old Aerovista executives. They weren't just trying to rebuild the system, they were trying to pass it on. Jules uncovered that Circuit Veil's beta testing was happening via drones. Disguised as delivery aircraft flying silently, collecting facial and gate data over urban areas. "No pilots," he whispered. "Just algorithms in the sky," Amani muttered. They learned nothing. Layla led a tactical interception in Nairobi, where one of the test drones crashed during a storm. Inside the wreck, hard drives, corrupted footage, and a message, "Witness behavior. Flag quietly. Store forever." It was time to go public. Amani presented the drone evidence to a UN assembly this time. There was no delay. 30-4 countries banned aerial data gathering. AI, 20 others froze funding for next-gen surveillance. Startups, the world was finally catching up to Amani's truth. On a quiet flight to Oslo, Amani sat in 1A, next to her, an older black woman with silver locks and tired eyes. "I know who you are," she whispered. "My son. Made it home because of you." They flew the rest of the journey in silence. Connected. Firestorm received one final, anonymous submission. A raw video of a black man stopped at Heathrow for unspecified behavior. But instead of fear, the man calmly recited Amani's legal protection protocols. The officers backed down. Jules laughed. She didn't just start a revolution. She gave people a script. 1 year after the first Prism breach, Amani stood atop a new monument at the Atlanta Digital Rights Memorial. It wasn't a statue. It was a runway of names every person wrongfully flagged, detained, or erased. Amani stepped onto the path, looked up at the open sky, and whispered, "We are not what they called us. We are not what they coded. We are what we refuse to be. Free." And this time no one stopped her flight. Amani Reiser stood alone at the edge of a quiet runway, the wind carrying the distant hum of departing aircraft. She closed her eyes and listened not just to the sound of engines, but to every voice. She had helped lift every truth she had forced into the light. They had tried to erase her, to blacklist her, to ground her flight before it ever took off. But she rose, again and again. Not as a passenger, but as a pilot of justice. And now, with the skies finally open and the world watching with wiser eyes, she stepped aboard a new plane, not to escape, but to lead. Because in the end, the sky never belonged to systems, walls, or wires. It belonged to the people brave enough to take it back. The end. Skybound justice.